Maguna. Oh, I love you!
Kyle Saka! It's Rice again!
I just want to tell Spurs fans this. Cheer up. You know, you may have lost at home to Bournemouth, but you won the important battle. You signed Xavi Simons after every other number 10 turned you down, so just keep in mind. Just let it all work out. This is Not That Kind of Gooner, an Arsenal podcast, and we're coming to you the day before we travel to Anfield for a big match early on in the season. We are recording a little later in the week than we normally do, but honestly, I'm so glad we are. So much stuff has happened. There's so many things to get to with Spurs kind of being Spurs, and then United being a train wreck so early in the season, and we have a couple transfers to talk about, a couple ins and outs, and then of course the matter of a trip to Anfield. So we're going to get into all of that. I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale, and with me today is, first of all, Drew. You can follow on Twitter at GeeChyKid. Drew, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's Saturday, so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. So yeah, how are you guys doing? It's good to be back.
Good. The football's on, and the free time is flowing. So I'm pretty happy about that. And with us as well today is John, who you can follow on Twitter at 305cast. John, how are you?
Good. Echo the Saturday sentiment, and it's in the U.S. It's a long weekend, so that's nice as well. Looking forward to that. Have a kind of mixed feelings about tomorrow, though. I'm kind of in a weird place. I wish United lost today. That would have been nice. They looked real bad, which was funny. And Spurs obviously lost. That was great. But yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it, which I guess is pretty good, right? I mean, usually you dread going to Anfield, but I'm excited. So
yeah, I think tomorrow will be a supremely stressful but somehow fun game. So we'll see how that goes. We'll talk about that in a bit. On the United point, before we get into the Arsenal of it all, I do think it is worth it just to talk for a few minutes about the United situation, because I think about a month ago they would have felt like they were in a much better place than we would have as fan bases, right? The Athletic went around and did their preseason poll of each fan base. United's was the most optimistic that polled, and fast forward to the end of August, and they are out of the Premier League running, if they were ever in it to begin with. They're out of the Carabao Cup. They're not playing any European leagues. So that leaves the FA Cup, and I don't really love their odds of winning that. So just to watch them on Wednesday go to Grimsby Town, 4th division team, and lose. First they went down 2-0, and then they got back into it, and then they lost on penalties, is just it's hilarious. It's hilarious, and also just it's a little sad in a way. And I sometimes I find myself hitting a point where it's just like, wow, like I honestly feel kind of bad for these guys. So just what? Yeah.
Nope. Don't feel bad for him.
Don't feel bad?
Nah.
No.
This is great. This is awesome. Keep it going.
We do come from a generation where we had to sit through them being dominant for 20 years. So maybe they haven't yet earned the sympathy. But yeah, like just what do you guys make of what you're seeing from United and this Šeško situation as well? Just I don't think there is a bigger ick in football than a center forward who wants to go 10th in a penalty shootout. So just, kind of give me you guys' thoughts on what's going on over there.
I think there's a lot of different things that I think are coming into play. First of all, I think that they made a lot of signings, especially in the attack, and they did not focus on key areas like the goalkeeper situation. Onana is just an awful goalkeeper. He really is. He really is. I mean, yes, he has some good shot stopping potential, but it's not outweighed by the just complete blunders that he makes across the pitch all the time, across his box rather, just all the time. It's baffling sometimes. And we've had our share of just pretty bad keeper situations, but I think over the course of a season they kind of were able to come through. United just doesn't have that, and then when you add that with the problems that they have getting all these new players to gel, in combination with the fact that I think Ruben just doesn't really have his tactics down pat and is not communicating it, or at least with everyone sufficiently. And on top of that, you add, I think, some disenchanted players like Mainu and Rashford was for a while. Looks like Garnacho. So, they're trying to move those players away. Maybe that'll kind of affect things a little bit. But all of these different factors are just playing into kind of just a real shit show for United.
Yeah. Drew, how about you?
I mean, I don't feel bad. I don't think any Arsenal fan feels bad for United at any point. What I would say is that there are some United fans I know that are actually like decent supporters, because obviously some United fans still kind of cling on to the legacy, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that when you are historically the most successful club in the top 5 league. I think it's okay to lean into some of the history, but I do think some United fans have gone over the top. But the ones I know that are sensible still remain positive, because they look at the signings for what they are, not for what they're bringing them into. And I do think a lot of the United signings would make a bit more sense maybe if Amarim was either more settled at the club, or if he just wasn't so hell-bent on remaining embedded in his tactical way of thinking. So that's kind of the conundrum you always have. Like, I don't think he's a bad manager. I just think he went United at a time where I don't think any manager in the world would make a good go of it. Even the likes of Pep and Arteta and Slot, I don't think they'd have a good go of it either. There's just the issues with the club are so deeply rooted beyond, their ability to still pull good players, that it's just such a poison chalice right now. So, in terms of things like Šeško, look, I think we all said it before that had we have gone for Šeško, there's no guarantee he would have started over Havertz, and I think you're seeing that. You see how unprepared he actually is for higher expectation. I think him not wanting to take a penalty earlier than 10th. I saw some discourse on this on Twitter. There's no way that you can sit there and try to convince me that Amarim thought he should be going 10th in the pecking order. Yes, managers will ask players who wants to step up first. They'll have an idea of who wants to go in the top 5, but I don't think he ever would have thought that 9 other outfield players would have gone before him. I don't think. To me, it just seems like he was almost shirking responsibility. Maybe he's still very nervous. Maybe that's why he wanted to go 10th. But again, is that the mentality you want for a player you just stumped up that kind of money on? Fans saying that we got the better deal. Arsenal went for Gyökeres. We got the better player. Like, look, there's a lot of discourse around that. I just feel like there's very little to enjoy about that club right now. If I was a United fan, as an Arsenal fan, I'm enjoying kind of the bedlam. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you can see how continuous poor decisions can topple even the strongest institutions. And I always look, and I correlate that to us. I look back as if Wenger and the club didn't handle our transition properly from Highbury to the Emirates, make the sacrifices we had to make, Wenger basically, in my opinion, doing one of the hardest managerial jobs that we've seen in Premier League history, is keeping us relevant in the top 4 while never truly really improving where we were as a club. You can see how destitute a big institution can become. So, fair play to them for scraping 3 points against Burnley today and another really poor performance. But losing to Grimsby, I think for me, that's writing on the wall. I think come Christmas, if Amarim doesn't have them in the top half of the table, I think he probably loses his job, maybe even before that. And the fact that a club of that stature only has basically the league to play for, roughly, at this point in the season, it's not even September. They have the league and the FA Cup. Like that's really poor. So it's a shame for their fans, but for us, it's great. So
And
I would say if they. Oh, sorry, John.
Yeah, I was just going to, if you don't mind, on top of that, really quick, you mentioned something, and just kind of tie it in with Arsenal a bit. You mentioned about, Drew mentioned about how Amorim is not really, he's not a bad manager, but I think that and I agree with that sentiment, but, I kind of think of the way that Arteta, what he had to do when he came into Arsenal, and I'll point out the difference between what Amorim is dealing with at United a little bit, but I think that Amorim's over his head in this scenario with what's going on in the background. With Arteta, first of all, I think that he's kind of a unique individual in being able to manage the way that he wants to and kind of control people around him, not in a negative way, but I think he's really good at getting his idea across and getting people on board with that idea. And what we saw with Arteta was a kind of unified understanding of where we wanted to go as a club, what the tactical ideas were, and they changed over time, but they all were in lockstep for the most part. There were some exceptions there, but I think that Arteta had a handle on things enough to the point where even if there were some disagreements, he came out on top and he had the control over the situation. Amorim is, while a good maybe football manager, I think it's that other side of the management, controlling a club in kind of a spiral, that I think he is severely lacking in. And I think that lacking is what's going to ultimately be his downfall. I think if he was able to rally everyone and get them on the same page the way that kind of Arteta did and Edu at the time, and everyone was kind of lockstep, for better or worse, I think United has a chance, especially with the talent that they brought in. I just don't see that happening. United has never been historically a club that has been able to get on the same page, at least in modern times, right? Even with, and you look at that with the cycle of the different managers, they all tried it. Like Mourinho came in and he tried, it didn't work. Like all these different managers came in and tried to get everyone on the same page, and it looked like maybe they had some relative success here and there. But when you compare it to kind of the consistent climb that Arsenal have had and Arteta have had, you look at just the different styles in managing and what his limitations are.
So I wanted to jump in real fast again. I think the United made the biggest critical error that they've had in recent years was when Rangnick came in, and now people reflect on it in hindsight and say his talent ID was actually exceptionally good, but United made choices that were far and away different from the players that he was recommending. You look at the list of players he thought the club should get, and you see where they are now and how they're performing. That for me is a key difference. When you bring people in, but you expect them to sort of acquiesce to things that you want to do as an institution because you're unable to shift your own landscape given where you are currently, right? I think Arsenal and Arteta did a good job with that because we knew we were in a rough spot when Arteta came in, and we were able to shift the landscape a little bit to get us over the line in that medium. And then as time passed, continuously, constantly do more landscaping to get us to where we are now. United are so embedded in this, we're Manchester United, XYZ, they're unable to move themselves away from that thought process. And that's why they continuously make poor decisions in terms of things like player recruitment, identifying new managerial candidates, that kind of thing. When they had a man in Rangnick who I would say, he's not going to be as like the name of someone like a Pep or whatever, but in terms of he understood and he called out the issues internally at the club, things like talent ID, how things were just kind of a mess. And unfortunately, the axe kind of fell on his head for it, but everything that he said turned out to be correct. And despite that, United have never fully addressed any of those things since he left. So it just shows that's what I mean, the issues are more deeply rooted. And as John said before, when Arteta came in, everyone from the top down, or at least the vast majority of people from the top down, were in lockstep with the club's vision and Arteta's vision, could move forward together. United have never had that since Alex Ferguson left. They've never had a manager and the club institution be in lockstep with how we move forward. It's always been at odds with each other, and when that happens, that tells you that the issue is likely the club, not the people that are bringing in to be in charge.
Yeah, and Amorim is not the manager that's going to be able to break that
Absolutely not. Yeah, I fully agree.
You need to you need a foundational change, and he's not the manager. If you threw, and I'll say something maybe potentially controversial. If you threw Amorim in this Arsenal side, I think he'd do far better than he could with the United side. Not just because our team is more balanced, and I think better across the board. But even at the times where we were struggling and we were kind of not there yet in our transitional phase, I think that if everyone had gotten behind Amorim the way that everyone got behind Arteta, and they do that at United, he could do better. He's a better manager than what we're seeing from him. And I think that putting your lead striker at 10th, assuming that he did that, which I can't imagine he would, but let's just say he did, that wouldn't surprise me as someone who's like clearly struggling and afraid of their position right now. But long may it continue. I hope they're all miserable.
But also real fast, if he can't even find time to start Šeško against Burnley, like, you then have to ask, like, did he actually truly want Šeško, or was that a club decision rather than an Amorim decision?
And I don't think he did, honestly. The early indications are that he didn't want Šeško.
Well, then
Yeah,
who
I don't think Šeško actually fits how Amorim wants to play. I think Šeško fits how maybe United, how the board wants the club to operate.
Do you know who fits how Amorim wants to play?
Yeah, I just...
He's wearing the number 14 shirt for us.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just it's so fun. It's so funny to me because, yeah, if there was ever going to be a moment where you could get him some minutes to maybe work on his confidence in the Premier League, it would be against a side like Burnley, who, fair play to them, like, they fought well. Like a stoppage time penalty, they were moments away from getting a draw, right? You know, that would have been a credible result against a team that most of us, if not all of us, thought they were going to go down. But yeah, if you can't start him, then when are you going to start him? You know, you're still using like a weird front three that's including Mason Mount. You know, which is bizarre because he looked kind of like dead and buried at the club. I mean, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of weird things going on that it does not add up to me. So yeah, as John said, long may it continue because the more that they remain off track, that's one less thing we have to worry about in terms of another giant coming alive again. So
yeah, well, not to mention, I think Amorim kind of pulled the curtain back a little bit after the Grimsby game when he gave those post-match remarks and said the players out there showed what they wanted today, right? And he's since tried to walk it back a little bit and be like, oh, I say things all the time. I say I hate my kids sometimes, which is an equally weird way to deal with what he said. But, you know, I do think in that moment after Grimsby, he was being very honest about kind of the level of connection that he has with this team right now. And I was watching a bit of Sean McVay's interview on Men with Blazers or Men in Blazers. Men with Blazers.
Men with trousers.
That's probably how Sean McVay referred to it as. Yeah, it's so great to be here on Men with Blazers. Talking about football.
Yeah,
but yeah,
football and Arteta.
Yeah, Mikel's great. He's a genius, man. It was great to. I just love listening to Sean McVay talk about things. But he was waxing lyrical about Arteta, and he kept stressing this point about how Arteta, through thick and thin, has maintained this closeness and this relationship with his players, where they walk into that building knowing that there is a very high standard that they need to maintain at all times, but simultaneously they're enjoying what they do. Right, they're happy to walk into the building. They're happy to be there. They're happy to play football under Arteta, and you just don't really get those vibes with this United team and Amorim. I just think there's a really big disconnect there. And honestly, if Amorim or if United had lost to Burnley today, I think Amorim would have been out during the international break, and they would have tried to get someone else in.
Did you see him during the penalty?
I was just about to say, yeah.
Did you see him? He was just like,
yeah.
They won the penalty, and then he was like, all right, yeah.
And I think that's also part.
I got to coach these guys again, damn
it. when you manage United or any really big club, a lot of times your persona will be under the microscope. Like that kind of body language wouldn't be accepted at a Real Madrid or a Barcelona or a Bayern or whoever, or even at Arsenal. I feel like if Arteta was there, sitting on the bench, arms folded, legs crossed, just no emotion, it would be weird to me. But then again, that's the thing. Arsene Wenger sometimes had those moments where he would just be very quiet, docile on the bench. But also, you'd see the inverse of that often, especially as time went on. when things were a bit more stressful, you would see him be animated. You'd see his outward emotion. So maybe Emmer's just trying to keep his cool because maybe he's under more duress than we realize. That also makes sense. But like, if the manager isn't showing any kind of, I don't want to say care is the wrong word, but just any sort of drive to sort of push players on, and when that's what you need your manager for, it also just feels a bit weird. I
feel like he overcompensated there a little bit. Like, okay, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here, right? Because during Grimsby, during the penalties, he was like he was like hiding. He was like in a little, like he was in the fetal position on the bench, right? Like
he was playing with like that, like those magnets on the board
at one point. But before that, even he was like curled up in the fetal position, just like trying to like disassociate. But so there he needs to be somewhere in the middle of those two extremes. I think there's room for where you can be emotional and things like that, and then complete nonchalance. Like you have to find some middle ground, and it's difficult to do, especially because it's like your job, right? We forget that this is like his career, and he's seeing it like spiral down the drain again. That's what you get for going to United. I don't know when these people are going to learn, but it's like Spurs and United. Like why you would get a job there is beyond me as a manager. That's like consider if you want to move the needle of your career. I don't see it, unless you're a masochist. Like I don't understand why you would want to go there and subject yourself to all of that. I guess it's the money and it's the fame and stuff like that to be a United manager. But it's almost like that club, managing that club has almost turned into some kind of like weird, like dominating fetish for these people, like just getting like humiliating, like a humiliation kink or something that they have. I don't know, man. I don't know why you would join the clubs, man. Anyway, no, I'm not king shaming anyone, especially Emerin, if that's what he's into. But like, clearly, you take that job knowing full well that you're going to be humiliated more often than not. So it's like, okay, if that's what you want.
Yeah. It's it's a mess, and like you said, long may it continue. There's just so many decisions that they make are just absolutely awful, and now we're gonna watch Šeško not piss away his career, but I think he's going to kind of set himself back a few years. I would put a good amount of money on Amorim getting sacked over the course of this season. Yeah, it's just. I think the gardener's outside. Anyway, it's just a sad state of affairs. But that's United. Let's turn to the Arsenal of it all, where things are going much better, much more positive and kumbaya over here, which is super sweet. Anyway, so we have apparently completed the signing of Piero Hincapié from Bayer Leverkusen. He was on the bench for their match today, but did not play a single minute. So thank you, Erik ten Hag, for not screwing us over. But yeah, he's going to come in probably as the left back. He can also play left center back. I think he's 22, 23, something like that, from Ecuador. I know he's 6 foot plus. I don't know the exact height on him, but
First Ecuadorian player.
Our first Ecuadorian player. So, it looks like he's going to come in and kind of give us something of an overlapping fullback profile, or at least as close as you're going to get to that under Mikel Arteta, who famously loves his center backs. So, it's a really interesting move. I think the total amount that we're paying is about 52 million euros, and that's a loan with obligation. Although some people have reported it as a loan with an option, so there's probably some little accounting trick in there to make sure that whatever we're paying kind of gets booked next year as opposed to this year for PSR purposes. But yeah, Drew, I'll go to you first. How do you feel about the signing, and how do you think he's going to kind of how do you think he's going to look at Arsenal? How do you think he's going to fit in?
I don't think he's going to fit in at left back like people assume. He can play left back, but the vast majority of appearances he has in his career are at center back. I think he's coming in as Kivior's replacement because the initial loan obligation to buy. So what I think could happen is that He'll come in. That ups the floor like we've talked about all summer long, upping the floor, also upping the ceiling. He's the right age profile for us. The fact that he can play left back is important. What I think that might potentially do is it may, depending on how things go with Nørgaard, it may open up an avenue as to where longer term we might see Lewis Skelly shift back centrally, and then maybe you have Hincapié moving to become the left back depth with Calafiore. Long term, for this season, I expect him to just feature at center back. And I think Kivior earned his move to Porto, or his pending move to Porto. I think it's just justified. I think when he did deputize for us last season, he proved a lot of detractors wrong. I think Porto's a good level for him, but for me, Hincapié is a better defender. I would trust him more from a technical level. He's got a good recovery pace. He's good in the air. I think he's more well-rounded, and he comes from a lot of sort of system dynamics under Alonso before he went to Real Madrid that would probably suit us from a playing standpoint. So I like the move a lot. I think financially, like as John said in the chat, for that price point, do you think he's going to end up being a starter? I think he's good enough to start for us. Yes. Like if Gabriel went down injured and we had to start him, I'd be totally fine with it. I wouldn't have any concerns. Whereas with Kivior, I had some concerns because I think with Kivior at his best, he was good enough to start for us on some sort of regularity, but at his worst, you didn't even want him on the bench, right? And I think we've all kind of said that about him last season specifically, in the season prior. But when it comes to Hincapié, I have no issues with it. If he was to come in and have to, deputize for Gabriel for like 3 months in a row, I think the level wouldn't even drop that considerably. Maybe like a level, because Gabriel is arguably one of the best center backs in the Premier League, if not one of the best center backs in Europe. But Hincapié is actually a very, very good player. So yeah, it's not a deal I expected. So it also makes me happy as well. I figured we would go for a player who kind of like a Kivior's level, but again, I think, and this is again for John, it shows that we're now in a position, both financially and mentally speaking, where we want anyone who's coming in to deputize or to rotate or to cover injuries, that they have to be as very, very close to the first 11 in terms of level, if not fully capable of starting and replacing in the first 11, so that must happen. So yeah, I think overall, I think it's another sign of intent that I think the club are actually really pushing for the league this year, if not more. And when you look back, back to front, all the deals we've done, this is definitely like the best transfer window I can remember as an Arsenal fan, almost maybe ever. Not maybe not the best, but it's definitely we'll just say it's the best transfer window of the Emirates era. We'll put it that way. I think that's clear. I don't even think that's controversial to say. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
No, I think it's the best transfer window I've ever seen as an Arsenal fan, right? Because we needed a backup goalkeeper, we got Kepa. We needed a 6, we got Zubimendi. We needed a backup 6, we got Nørgaard. We needed a right-sided defender, especially to replace Tomiyasu. We got Mosquera. We needed a kind of a left back who I still think Hincapié kind of offers something at left back, but I am open to the idea that maybe he's kind of backing up Gabriel and Calafiore simultaneously in that regard, just because of how he fits in with Eza. But so we needed like a left side defender to kind of provide depth. We got Hincapié. We needed a striker. We got Gyökeres. We needed a winger who could play both sides. We got Madueke. And, we needed kind of, a left-sided playmaker who could add final third product, and we went and got Eza. So, I mean, every single imaginable hole that we had in the team, we went out there and addressed in one window, which if you'd asked me in May, like if I thought we were going to do that, I'm a very optimistic man when it comes to Arsenal Football Club. And yeah, John is nodding in agreement. Drew, you can attest to this as well. I'm a very optimistic guy when it comes to Arsenal. I would not have said to you with a straight face, we are signing 8 players to fill every need we have, and maybe we'll even go sign a 9th if there's an opportunity to do so, which I now think is kind of... I don't expect it, but I do think that's still possible between now and the close of the window. But yeah, no, it's just an absolutely exciting window. So I see Hincapié kind of coming in as someone who, yes, he can back up Gabriel. I think he's also someone who's going to provide kind of that overlapping quality on the left with Eza. I think Calafiori is still kind of the first choice in that regard, but should we need to rotate? Should Calafiori go down with an injury? We're not suddenly kind of tied into playing with some sort of dynamic that maybe is less than optimal. But John, what do you make of the Nkapie signing, and what do you think he's going to bring to Arsenal?
I mean, so you said that if you had asked you in May if we would sign 8 players in a window and address all the needs that Arsenal had, you wouldn't have believed it. And I'm going to take that a step further and say that if you had asked me in 2015 if Arsenal in the next 10 years are ever going to sign 9 players in a single window, 8 players in a single window, and address all of their needs, I wouldn't have believed you either. So the fact that we've done it, better late than never, is pretty amazing to me. So not only that, this is a very exciting player, in my opinion. And it's one that kind of came out of nowhere for us. And obviously it had that Spurs connection again, which was hilarious, by the way, the timing of it. And they're just getting beat down by us in the transfer market every 10 seconds, which is awesome. But even besides that whole hilarity of it, I think that it's a real player that is going to offer not only this physicality, I think, because what I love about Calafiori on the left side is Andrew Mangan has called it like swashbuckling and marauding left back, which he kind of is in some regard. And I think that I want to see Nkapie play at that left back role because I think he'll offer something similar, but he also offers this really interesting goal threat that Calafiori does as well. I think Calafiori has a goal in him, but especially in set pieces, I feel like Nkapie has a little bit of an edge, especially from like headed set pieces, and knowing how good our delivery is from Rice, for example, and how much we love our set pieces, I can see that being a very interesting substitution. So, just for example, Arteta's, we need a goal. We're in the second half. A team's sitting and parking the bus. Eze is not able to find a way through. Gyökeres is being frustrated a little bit, and then you can bring on fresh legs for a set piece in this huge Ecuadorian defensive player who's ready to score a goal from a set piece. You know what I'm saying? Like now, and this is what I've noticed across the board with these signings, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, Shem. It's not just a backup option. It's someone that can challenge for a first team spot. Now, what does that do? People hear that line of thinking and they think, oh, that means that this player is going to have competition, right? And it's going to push each other and things like that. And it's not necessarily the case. What it offers is tactical flexibility, not only from match to match, but within a game. So that if Arteta needs to reach into his toolbox, we know that forget about it if he gets injured and needs to cover for him, which he's perfectly capable of. All of a sudden, we need a physical, lethal goal threat for set pieces, and we can bring fresh legs on, and we can do that. And I imagine having to defend against this Arsenal team, and then being able to bring a player like that on, even if it's not someone that's starting a match, and that goes vice versa for him playing, and then Calafiori coming on, who could do something similar. It is exactly what you want to see when you're talking about squad depth. It's what you want to hear when you're talking about squad depth. That's what we mean, and that's what we have across the board. I don't see a weakness anywhere on this pitch, at all. Especially when Gabriel Jesus comes back from injury. Touch wood. Then that's another depth option that we're kind of like forgetting about. Like we're seeing videos of pictures of him training, like low key under the radar. This guy's already on the grass again, and I'm just saying that's another one. So. It's an interesting season. It's an interesting signing. It's definitely the best transfer window in my recent memory, and it's hard to compare it to something like the summer we signed or whatever when we signed Ian Wright or signed Thierry Henry or signed Bergkamp. You know what I mean? That's obviously those are iconic times for us. But in terms of addressing all the needs in the squad, I don't remember a time we've done that.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point about Jesus, by the way. Low key, I think I just imagine him combining with like Gyökeres and Eza.
Yeah,
I think he has a role to play this season. So
I agree.
yeah, so we'll see what happens when he comes back, hopefully in a couple months. And yeah, I just think it's, before we kind of move on to Kivior, just my last word here is that I think it's very ambitious, and it's Arsenal. I think historically have shown maybe not a level of arrogance necessarily, but I think they haven't taken seriously the things that could go wrong in a season, right? And I feel like if this was previous summers, we would have what we have, and then we've signed Eza, and that makes Calafiori a lot more important in the way that we play, right? Because now we have a left winger who we are pushing inside very purposefully, as opposed to someone like Martinelli or Trossard who can exist out wide, and they want to come inside too. But that's someone who can play on the touchline. So I think in previous summers we would have been like, all right, well, that's great. Calafiori and Eza can play together, and nothing will go wrong there. This guy who's missed most of the last season definitely won't get injured again. And then the window will shut. Calafiori will tweak something in his calf, and he'll miss 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, we are trying to make Lewis Skelly play as an overlapping left back, which is not what he does. So I just love that we've really gone out of our way to make sure that if we don't get the Champions League or the Premier League or some competition over the line this season, it's either because the manager messed up or the players didn't do their jobs or because we had the worst luck imaginable. And so, I'm not going to say no excuses because there's always excuses, but we've made it so that the impetus now is on the people in the building. It's on Arteta. It's on the players. Berta and the board have done everything that they can to make this a successful season. Maybe we can revisit what we need in January. I suspect we're not going to do anything in January, which is fine. That I think they've earned that. But yeah, it's just it's a newfound ambition and kind of attention to detail in the transfer market that I'm really happy to see. But on the flip side of that, right? So we're signing Nkapie to replace Kivior, who is off to Porto for a fee of 27 million euros. And John, I'm going to go to you first because you're the sales guy. So
I'm not. I want to have sales guy is what I am.
well, what do you make of that outcome?
I mean, I'm not really happy with that price. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that it's partially on Kivior because he's, it's just our luck that the player that we finally are talking about players that can kind of command a decent fee, and he goes to the brokest league, the brokest club on the planet, the most difficult one to deal with. Like, fine, great, gee, really appreciate that. And I know there was some I think Crystal Palace were looking at him, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, Palace wanted them.
This is a they had just gotten a bunch of money from us. They're a London club. They got some money. They just won the FA Cup. They had some cash to throw around, and it would have been real nice of you, Kivior, to just go to Crystal Palace. And instead, you had to go back to over there. Whatever, man. I don't know. We were talking about maybe it's like the weather or something. Maybe just he's Eastern Europe weather his whole life. Maybe he's just then comes to London. I don't really know. Maybe he just feels the vibe there more. Maybe
after spending some time in Italy, by the way, and enjoying that weather.
Yeah, it probably ruined it for him a little bit. I don't know, but at the end of the day, I'm just really we got to get better at selling players, and I get that we have like a lot of value in the squad right now, and that hopefully when the time comes to sell these players, because we're in a position where that'll be fine, that we can maximize the value for them. I really do hope that. I don't think we've had any really history of that. What we have been good at doing selling wise, just because you brought it up, is with our academy players. I think that's where we've seen a lot of good movement. We saw it with Iwobi. We saw it with not really Oxlade-Chamberlain, but obviously Oxlade-Chamberlain to Liverpool was a big move. We saw it with Nketiah. We saw it with Emile Smith-Rowe. So those moves are out there. And when you look at, there's graphs out there that show the profit that we've made, and we're kind of high on the list. And I think it's partially inflated by those kind of moves because that's 100% profit, right? What I want to get better at is when we buy a player and then they play for us for a while, they develop, and then or they do something for us that increases their value or maintains it in some meaningful way that allows us to recoup more or a reasonable fee for them. Like Kivior, for example. That should have been a player that we should have been able to sell for a profit that we bought him for. Look at what he did in the Champions League. Look what he did every time he came on and had the ability to against Real Madrid, the best team in Europe. Arguably, that even though we beat them, I guess we're better than them that year. So, but you see what I'm saying? Like that should have, if he were playing for Liverpool and he did that for Liverpool, he would be he'd be getting even more money from Porto than we are getting for him. I think I really believe that, and I don't really know exactly what the reason for that is. Maybe you guys have your theories, but I do want to see us get better at that aspect of sales.
Yeah, I just think I was talking about this with James when he was on to do the take purge a couple weeks ago. I just think the players that we want to sell aren't that good, really. And occasionally you have guys like Willock and Smith Rowe and Nketiah who draw that interest. But I think I'd throw Kivior in that category as well. I just think Kivior, unfortunately, kind of limited our leverage by kind of just outright choosing Porto and kind of insisting that he leaves the Premier League. But outside of that, like look at who else we're trying to offload this year, right? Nelson, who can't stay fit to save his life. Trossard, who is a good player, but he's the kind of player that...
Hold on. How can we not make a profit off Trossard? Like, look at what this guy has done since he's come to this club. First of all, no expectations on him. And this notion... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like this notion that we didn't... This notion that we that the players that we have are not, good enough. Like, we have to also consider like giving them a chance in certain positions, like Zinchenko, for example. Yeah, okay, maybe not the best defensive player, but we can't sell him anywhere. I think it's partially on the manager who have not selected him for a very long period of time and allow assets to kind of to languish a little bit. And then in Trossard, we played him all the time. He's far better, market value now he should have than when we bought him, and we can't sell him. Nelson, I'll give you, because I feel like he never really took his chances and things like that. He's always like a preseason wonder and then kind of dissipates. But I mean, come on, these players are good enough that we should be able to make something off them. We should be able to sell them somewhere.
Yeah, but the problem is Trossard is 30 years old, on big wages, and he's not like this like sexy, like super fast or super clinical player, right?
But we just gave him more money. We increased his wages, and now we're like, oh, we can't sell him. It's too high.
Well. So I don't think we wanted to sell him this summer. I think we put a contract offer on the table, and then he went and tried to see what his options were, and then he came back and signed the contract, not extension, but the pay raise. I mean, and with Zinchenko, right? I just think Zinchenko's a player who's kind of fallen out of fashion a little bit. Inverted left backs aren't as popular as they were a couple seasons ago. Also,
a lot of money too. He's on
150K a week.
Yeah, that's true.
He just released an autobiography in which he was complaining about not getting enough playing time, which I'm sure doesn't help. And the thing is, like with the point about playing guys to kind of put them in the shop window, I get that, and there are, I think, some situations where you can do that. But if you're trying to win like the Premier League or the Champions League, it's really hard to find the moments to do that, especially if like
I don't know.
I
don't know. And here with Zinchenko, I don't mean sorry because I like this conversation.
No, this is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. So Zinchenko, why wasn't he ever played centrally or in the midfield? Why was it always this inverted left back? You know, everyone in the world like saw that this guy has this technical ability, and we had times in multiple seasons where, like, where Odegaard got injured or something like that. Like, is he really not? Is he even trying to put him there?
Well, we did play him a couple times there in the Champions League last season.
Yeah, and like didn't give him a significant amount of time there. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just me complaining for the sake of it, but I really do think that we didn't give Zinchenko enough of a chance.
Yeah.
I really don't. I agree. I tend to agree with him, and I agree with Arteta most of the time. I think he gets it right 99, maybe 90 to 99% of the time. I think, you know. And then even if he doesn't, like, it turns out he like makes it work, and I'm like, all right, fair play. You know more about the sport than I do, like clearly. But with Zinchenko, I really do think that he didn't, that he could have played him more, and he didn't. And there's probably different reasons for that. But and I get it. Like, that's part of being ruthless, right? I guess that we just have to accept that part of being ruthless is that we're not going to be as good at selling players because they're not going to play as much if they're not as good. Maybe we just need to win the league like Liverpool. Once we win the league, then I think all of our player values go up. You know, now all of a sudden they're part of a team that won the league.
I think kind of like my last point on this is look at the players that our rivals are selling this summer, right? Like Luis Diaz, Darwin Nunez, Nicholas Jackson, if he agrees to get on the plane back to London. Nkunku, Madueke, right? So, like, those are all younger players with high ceilings who have, kind of started consistently-ish for their clubs, and they're still kind of viewed as, like, profiles who have something to give, right? For a very long time. So that's why you have teams like, El Hilal or Bayern Munich or Arsenal coming in and trying to sign these guys because they're genuinely very good players, but they still have a lot of career left in front of them, right? So they could get even better. So I think what we've done this summer will kind of allow us to enter that echelon of being able to sell players for that amount because look at who our rotation options are now, right? Obviously, we don't want to sell Saliba or Rice or Saka and those guys, right? But our squad options who maybe we'd consider selling if the right offer came in, it's Nkapie, it's Mosquera, it's Madueke, right?
Are we good at selling them when the time comes, though? I mean, we don't have a track record of that.
But
I'm worried.
I know, and I think it's completely like legitimate and understandable and probably correct to be worried, but I just think it's a different prospect when you're trying to sell like those players that we have now as opposed to players, like the ones I've listed who we very clearly don't want at the club and maybe aren't viewed as having as much to offer as some of the players that we've went and picked up now. So, if some club comes in, like if Bayern or whoever comes in for, Madueke or Nkapie or Mosquera or whoever in like the next year to 2 years, and we agree a fee of like £30 million with them, at that point I'm going to be like, okay, like who's in all these negotiations, who's settling for, these low funds. But I just get the sense that if we do sell one of those guys, it's going to be
higher. Yeah.
It'll be higher. It'll be for like 50 plus, and we'll finally break our insanely low sales record at this point.
35 million, I think it is. 30.
Yeah, for Chamberlain, Oxlade-Chamberlain. Yeah.
Or Balogun, I think is up there.
Drew, what do you make of the kind of the Kivior sale and kind of the what John and I are kind of chatting about here in terms of our history with selling and maybe the outlook on that?
Tom and I used to talk about this a lot and kind of still do, and I mean, Tom, obviously, given his position, works really closely with the club, and he knows quite a lot of the ins and outs, and his opinions, when I align with and agree with, is that you can only sell players for a certain price point depending on the club that wants to buy the player. Like, and I think that's kind of... So then that's just kind of that's just part and parcel of it. But you also have to want players. You also have to have players that clubs want. So those are two parts of it. If you have both those things, you can then sell players for a high fee. If you only have one of those two things, the price is going to come down. Using Trossard as an example, yeah, I think Trossard could definitely go if he was to leave this summer, just for argument's sake. I think there are plenty of clubs both in the Premier League and in maybe the top 5 leagues in Europe where he could go and be a very valuable starter. But do those clubs have the money as to where we want to get like our restitution and make a profit off of it? Most of them probably don't.
Where are these clubs? Where are these guys' agents in all of this, though? Like, you figure, like, I'm thinking I'm an agent. I have a fiduciary relationship with the client, sure. But then at the same time, I'm trying to make some good money. Why am I not advertising these people or marketing them better to other clubs to maximize the value that you can get? I mean, it's only in their incentive. So it's either we just don't have those players, or, we're not doing a good enough job getting them to the right places, or getting in the ear of the right people to get them in the right places.
Well, I don't think. I think football transfers are so interconnected now with communications that most big clubs are going to know if, like, we were selling Trossard or whoever it might be. But that doesn't mean they can necessarily afford what we want to sell the player for. Like, those clubs also have to want that player to convince themselves to pay that money. So, for example, like, McAtee just went for however much money, right, to Forest.
Mm-hmm.
He, for whatever reason, he is a more valued asset in the current market than someone like Reece Nelson, right? Probably for a few reasons. Nelson has a really bad track record with injury. There's that. He's never been. I think the hype around him died out 2 years ago. McAtee is still very much a hyped up English player, so there's going to be a market where that's going to command more money.
But why didn't we
Also,
sell
Nelson's
Why didn't we
25.
sell Nelson back then? But
I agree with that. I don't.
No, but hold on.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. This is not just a current thing, and this is what I'm getting at. This has been a long-standing problem that we've had, not being able to maximize the potential of our players at the right moment for various reasons. And yes, there are valid reasons for all of this, but like eventually it starts adding up to what seems to be a problem. And you opened the door to the sham because you asked me about selling, and so I'm so this is on you.
This is what I get.
This is what you get. All right. So I agree with you with everything you just said, and I agree with your position about how we've kind of missed the boat on someone like Nelson, for example. Now we're stuck with the player, and I think maybe we could have missed the boat with someone like Zinchenko. Maybe there was a better time to sell him than, once it became clear that he was a surplus to requirements. That's when you really start, getting him in games, getting him like really, and then saying like, start talking about him. Look at this player. He's wonderful for us. X, Y, Z. You really start hyping him up. I get it. Arteta's focused with winning, and that's a bigger thing than maybe important thing for him and for the club. But I think that's something he can do better. I think helping the team maximize value for players strategically in a way that doesn't compromise our ability to get our goals on the pitch is something that he can get better at as well. And he'll be the first one to tell you that he can improve in certain areas too. I don't think that that's like a key priority for him right now, and I understand why that's not the case, but it leaves us with the reality of difficulty in selling players, and it's been something that's happened for a while.
So my take on that, I don't think you're wrong, and certainly I don't think you're on the wrong track. I think where you and I align on this is we have to be better at knowing when to sell players.
Yes.
Yeah, part of it, definitely.
I think that's the key, and I agree. I think there was that moment, it had been 2 years ago, when there was quite a bit of interest in Nelson. We probably just should have let him go. Maybe he didn't want to leave, I get it, but at the end of the day, it's like, listen, like, you may not want to leave, but like, your value here is no longer a concern to us in a way. I do feel like smart, like, for example, like if you look at, and as much as I rag on them, I will give Chelsea credit. They will know like how to move players on or whatever. City know how to move players on very, very well. That's a prime example. City somehow always not only know how to move players on, but they usually get pretty high fees for them.
Insane.
We can probably speculate as to why that is, but I don't want to go into that right now. There's another reason.
They'll sell a player. I'm like, I've never even heard of them before. Like, where is this guy coming from? 40 million? What?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to discuss my actual opinion on why I think they get the fees they do, but they also are not afraid to let players go. And I think that's definitely something where we do have to improve. Yeah. So my hope is like moving forward, say things go really, really well this season, say we win the league, and let's just say Eze absolutely smashes it. He's like everything we dreamed of plus 20. And then we got like a good bid for Odegaard. I think at that point you'd have to consider selling Odegaard. Not because I want him to go, but because sometimes if you get a really good bid for a good player, but you know you're going to be fine without them, you don't have to always. I'm going to use like therapy speak. Arsenal as a club have to master the art of detachment. we have to be okay with detaching ourselves from players and letting them go.
Kill your darlings.
Yeah, knowing that now with Berta in and his working relationship with Arteta and how strong it's already become, we'll be fine with replacing players that go.
I hope
and
so.
I think that's probably what we missed previously. I don't think we were running well operationally, and you can see now kind of what's going on with Edu elsewhere. Maybe that was part of it too. Maybe now with Berta we'll be more ruthless in terms of not only just letting players go, but also getting better fees moving forward. I think Berta's main task this summer, we talked about this in the group, was to bring the players in. To up the floor, to up the ceiling, to get us to a place quality-wise where we can go again and actually get over the hump for winning the league. I think Berta's next task, now that he's cemented that he knows how to go into the market and make the right deals, is making sure we become a club that's more capable of selling as well. So when you can marry those two together, you're in a much better spot, obviously. So I do agree with John in that aspect. I think it's a big key. For me, the next step I want to see is we need to know what, not just how to get better financial restitution for when we sell players, but knowing when to sell them, because that is an art. Part of transfers is knowing when to sell. It's no different like when you own a house, like how to read the market. When's the best time to sell this house, flip the house, buy a new house? Those things are all kind of linked in some way. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
And if you recall, and I'll hand over to because we should probably talk about Liverpool at some point. So I'll just say that's what I meant when I talk about my concern about maximizing the value of the players. I'm not concerned about the value that the squad we have now. I know that they're worth a lot of money, and that if we wanted to sell them now, we could do it. And when if you go back to our chat, you'll see what my position was about maximizing the value when the time comes, and I think you kind of pinpointed on the perfect issue there. It's knowing when that time is to maximize the value for your players is something that I think we need to improve on, and hopefully Berta can kind of get us.
And real quick, I think there are some clubs that you can draw inspiration from. You see a lot of clubs in Portugal, like the big three in Portugal, know when to sell those players, how to get the absolute maximum fee, because they know the cycle continues. Like their reality is a little bit different than ours, of course, but it's still the same reality. They will always get a really high fee to know, okay, this player's value is maybe at its peak because the market demands a 22-year-old midfielder that a club in the big three want them. You're never going to get a better price for this now. Do we sell now? Yeah, we sell now. We can take 1/5 of that, replace them, and then the cycle continues. So I do think that's probably as an example of how we can improve that. But yeah, we should probably move on to Liverpool.
we are going to Anfield tomorrow.
Just before we hit on the Champions League draw really quickly, and then we'll talk about Anfield. But before we do that, I think Arsenal have two problems when it comes to selling. The first one is, like you guys have hit on, we do not know when to say yes to offers. And the example that is foremost in my mind whenever I think about this is Ainsley Maitland-Niles, when he had that breakout season with us during Arteta's first season at the club. And then Wolves came in and offered £20 million for him, and we said no to that offer and chose to hold on to Maitland-Niles and try to use him as this, right back, left back cheat code that he was for us in 1920. And we said no to the offer, and then he came out and said he wanted to play in midfield, which was completely contrary to Arteta's plans with him. And he proceeded to have an absolute stinker of a season, and the value was gone. We let him go on a free. So, I do think we have to get better about just taking the money sometimes. I absolutely agree with that. And kind of intertwined with this is the second issue that we have, which I think is kind of something that we do that shoots ourselves in the foot a little bit so that we don't get these offers regularly. I think we give big contracts to too many players, right? And specifically, Zinchenko, I understand, so I'm not going to knock the Zinchenko thing because we brought him in as a starter. But Nelson, we gave him $100K. Why? And Kedia, we gave him 100K. Thank God Crystal Palace came in, and thank God we are in an era of the Premier League where most Premier League teams can afford that kind of wage. But I just think we need to stop giving these six-figure salaries to players who are very clearly not in our plans. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I am optimistic that kind of between Berta and kind of the increased quality across the squad, I think we're going to start seeing better outcomes in terms of our sales. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Before we talk about Anfield, real quick, the Champions League draw was yesterday. And once you manage to sit through kind of the most narcissistic, self-shoulder padding,
cringy,
or self-back padding kind of nonsense skits that they made us sit through, they did the draw, which that part was fun. So our draw is as follows in order. We are away at Athletic Club September 16th. We are home to Olympiacos October 1st. We are home to Atletico Madrid October 21st. We are away at Slavia Prague November 4th. Home to Bayern Munich November 26th. Away at Club Brugge December 10th. Away at Inter Milan January 20th. And home, thank the Lord, to Kairat Almaty on January 28th. All in all, I think this is a pretty solid draw, right? Yes, we have to play Bayern, and I think Bayern have tooled up a little bit this summer, but we get to play them at home, so it'll be a fun game under the lights, and I think there is... I'm optimistic that we can get our revenge on them. But outside of that, none of these teams really worry me. Inter, it's not the same Inter that we're going to go away to this year as we went away to last year. They've had a bit of a poor start, it sounds like, under Christian Kievu. And Kairat Almaty, that's the team from Kazakhstan that made it into the Champions League this season. And I was really hoping not to get the away trip to them. So when I saw that name, I panicked briefly. But they're coming to us, which is nice. So, yeah, I think it's solid. Schedule-wise, the Bayern Munich game unfortunately falls between away trips to Spurs and Chelsea, which will be a little brutal, but I do think we have the squad to cope with that. So we'll see. But, Drew, I'll come to you first on this. What do you make of the draw here? Do you think this is about the best case scenario we could have hoped for?
Yeah, I think it's really good. The only concerns I have, I guess, like in terms of like possible hiccups, like Atleti are always going to be annoying because they just know how to compact defend, and we know how sometimes we can struggle with that. I do expect us to still win because we're at home for that. Bayern are going to be Bayern. They have a lot of attacking talent as always. I do think they still can be gotten at. I don't think they've not started at the races this season. Like, they're picking up wins, but there's a lot of questions. But it's in November, that match, so they'll iron the kinks out come then. So I do think that'll be probably I think that's going to be our toughest group stage match. Inter, I mean, they opened their Serie A campaign with a 5-0 win against Torino. So they look really, really good, at least in that match. But Christian Schiff is a very different, like, tactical question to consider where they've been previously. So I do think they might be more open because they're going to be a bit more attacking now, I think. So we'll see how that goes. And the highlight for me, which is a very interesting kind of like divine providence kind of moment. So there's every likelihood that I'll be in Belgium when we go away to Bruges. So I'm going to see if I can get actually tickets to that. And why that's also interesting is because I'll be there long enough as to where I might try to get tickets for my best friend and I go see Newcastle play Union Saint-Gilloise as well for like his early birthday present. So I was really excited about the draw just because there might be 2 chances for me to go see Champions League football in Belgium while I'm there. So couldn't have worked out any better. But yeah, overall I think we should be getting 6 wins from 8 at least. If you told me we won 6, drew Inter and drew Bayern, I wouldn't be sad about that at all. I think that puts us in a really good position to end up similarly placed as to last season in Champions League, which I just want to get those guaranteed top 8 places. It doesn't have to be finished third. Just get top 8. Higher the better, of course. But and with the improvements in the team as well, yeah, that's kind of my line. I think anything less than 6 wins, I wouldn't be disappointed with it, but I do think we should be getting 6 of those 8. And I do think there's probably room to say we could go on and beat Bayern and Inter. So yeah, I'm really positive about it. I expect us to do well again. So yeah, we see how it goes.
Yeah. I just realized I butchered Chifu's name, so apologies for that. But
I don't think you speak Romanian, so I think it's all right.
Or do you?
people of Romania, forgive me. I don't. I have enough trouble with English as it is. But yeah, John, what do you make of Arsenal's draw? And is there anything in there that's concerning you, or are you kind of on the same page as Drew?
No, 100% on the same page. And I think 6 out of 8 is definitely the number that 6 is like the magic number for me too. And I think, I don't know, you kind of touched on that November for us, but yeah, I mean, Arsenal, the North London derby, then Bayern Munich, and then Chelsea away within a week that's going to be a very interesting week for us. But that's why we have these depth options. So there's going to be plenty of games, I think, in this to see some interesting rotation. And there's kind of no excuse for us not to do that this year. So as much as I'm looking forward to and thinking we can get these wins, I'm really looking forward to seeing Arteta have the tactical flexibility to start experimenting with the squad players. I'm actually really looking forward to that. I think I like that when teams do that. I like to see one of my favorite things about Arteta and this Arsenal side is when we switch it up with a different player in a position, and then it actually works in like a kind of different way. I like that. I think it's interesting. As much as it is great to see the same team week in and week out and have that stability, seeing the tactical flexibility is just part of football that I like personally. So I'm excited to see how he implements that with these players. And maybe we'll see even though we weren't going to see him normally start in the Premier League, start a game at the 10 or something like that, or change the formation up a little bit, or experiment maybe with 2 strikers with Gyökeres and Kai when he's fit again, things like that. Like, these are the opportunities in the league games with some of these, no offense, lower opposition teams. That can be pretty interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to Daumann's first Champions League goal. So I hope we see that.
That'll be pretty crazy. I think Gyökeres is going to ball out against these teams, because this is exactly the setting that he loves to play. A lot of these teams are going to come at us and try to play us, and that's where we're at our best. Yeah, and then we've kind of retooled so that we're actually effective on the counter. So it'll be fun, and at least it wasn't PSG's draw. Have you guys seen PSG's draw?
No.
Yeah, it's rough. It's
I'll read it out to you, John. It's
Let me hear it.
So they're away to Bayern, home to Barca, away to Atalanta, home to, or am I reading this the wrong way? No, sorry, switch that. They're home to Bayern, away at Barca, home to Atalanta,
It's a little better.
Away to Leverkusen,
That's not good.
home to Spurs, away to Sporting, home to Newcastle, away to Athletic Bilbao.
All right, so PSG have a very difficult run there.
Yeah. No, that is pretty rough. So it could have been way worse for us. So yeah, I'm excited and looking forward to that first Champions League game, and it'll be cool. All right, let's talk about Anfield. So tomorrow, big game. We're going away to Liverpool. And as things stand at the time of recording, Saka is definitely out for this game. It sounds like maybe he'll be back during the international break, but at the very most 3 to 4 weeks. Odegaard appears to be a doubt.
Did he train today? Do you know?
I don't know.
Because Arteta, I think yesterday was saying that we'll know tomorrow. Well, if he's training, he didn't train today. I wonder if he trained today.
I think, and I'll expand on this in a moment, I think he'll play. But Odegaard is officially a doubt.
Okay.
Havertz, David Ornstein reported the other day that he is going to be out for a single-digit number of weeks. So I'm going to read that as 2 months. So Havertz is missing this game. White apparently is a doubt. Trossard apparently is a doubt. Norgard is a doubt. So we're kind of walking into this with a bunch of injuries already. But on the flip side, Liverpool are missing Frimpong, and I think, is McAllister injured as well? I feel like McAllister is also injured for them. So they're dealing with some injuries of their own. But, John, how do you think we're going to line up at Anfield, and kind of what are no
I
idea.
just put my hands up. So okay, how do I think we're gonna line up, and what was the other one?
And just I guess what's your biggest concern in the match? Because there's multiple concerns to have, but what's your biggest?
I have one. All right, so I'll start with the back. Obviously, I think Raya will start in goal. I think Calafiori will start at the left back, and then Gabriel, and then Saliba. I think Timber is going to be at right back. That would be my position, and so I think we'll have that 4 at the back, and then I guess we've been doing that like 4-2. It'll be like a 4-2-3-1 maybe. Mm-hmm. I guess that's how we'll do it maybe. Like, and then you'll see kind of Rice and Zubimendi in the midfield, and then you'll have like a front 3. You'll have like maybe Eze, Odegaard if he's fit maybe. I guess it depends if he's fit, and then Madueke on the right, and then Gyökeres up top. Maybe is one way that we can approach it. And I guess another way you can approach it is if Odegaard's out, then Eze can be in that Odegaard role. Maybe Martinelli out on the left or Trossard, one of the two. Gyökeres up top, and then Madueke on the right. Because I think Madueke looked better on the right when he came on. So if Saka is out, I would imagine that Madueke is going to be there on the right for us. My concern is if Calafiori is going to start at left back and he's going to do that kind of swashbuckling, buccaneering thing where he's going forward and doing the overlapping runs, there's been times where we've been caught out on that side and kind of targeted this season whenever that has happened. It looks like teams like deliberately see Calafiori going over there and making overlapping runs and then kind of try to get the ball as quickly as possible in a counterattack if we lose possession, and then Gabriel sometimes or Rice will have to kind of step in, and sometimes it's led to some kind of shaky situations. So that's without Mohamed Salah. So I imagine that for me is my biggest concern, that left side with Salah. But it will be interesting tactically to see how we set up, because it is difficult for even fans to figure it out. It's going to be difficult for Slot to figure out, I think, how Arteta plans to play up against them. But I think Liverpool are going to go into this knowing there are certain areas of the pitch that they know they're going to be able to target, and I think that left back position is going to be one of them.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest concern I have as well, just because Salah's been very quiet to start this season, but he always seems to turn it on against us. And like you said, Calafiori is going to vacate that space a lot over the course of this match. And I think it's worth it, especially considering, Odegaard might be out, Saka is going to be out, Havertz is going to be out. So we're kind of missing a lot of attacking quality. So I don't mind trying to make up for that with Calafiori. But I guess we do have at least a couple players who mitigate that, right? In Gabriel and Rice, I think those two are going to try to combine to defend that left-hand side. I think Rice is going to be dropping deeper against or at Anfield. And if we start Martinelli, then he can also kind of contribute in that regard as well. And I think if Odegaard's out, then I think Martinelli is definitely starting. I'll put it like that. But yeah, the lineup I expect to see is Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Zubimendi, Odegaard, Rice, Madueke, Gyökeres, Eze. I think that's the lineup that we're going to go with.
Yeah,
just because
so that 4-2-3-1 kind of lineup.
Yeah. Because Eze, I think Eze's ready to play. Obviously, there's kind of off the ball things that he's not going to be fully adjusted to yet, and you're going to see that during the game. There will be a couple moments, but I just think he has the problem that we have had with Liverpool historically is that they are better than us in the boxes, right? They will take their chances in our box, and we won't take our chances in theirs. So the thing that I'm worried about with Liverpool, outside of Salah generally, is just I know we're going to get several chances against this Liverpool defense, right? They have not been good this season. They've been extremely leaky. I think we're going to get in behind them a lot. We're going to take a lot of shots in this game. But the problem is, and the problem has historically been, that when we get those shots, we do not put them in the back of the net. And I would love to have Eze on the pitch without, if Saka's not going to be there, just because he offers that clinicality. He offers that creativity, and he's a player who's going to punish Liverpool if they continue to be as sloppy at the back as they have been. So that's why I want him in there as opposed to Martinelli or Trossard. And I think Odegaard's going to start in this game. I think they'll do a little injection or whatever they have to do in that shoulder to get him on the pitch, because if he's not playing, if he's out and Saka's out and Havertz is out, and that front three is a bunch of new guys, or three of that front four is a bunch of new guys, then I think our press is going to be pretty poor, relatively speaking. It won't be horrific, but those are three guys who have only been at the club for a matter of weeks, as has only been at the club a week. So asking them to kind of replicate our pressing scheme without Odegaard there to kind of hold their hand, I think is going to be a tough ask. So for that reason, I think Odegaard is going to be back in there. Maybe he won't play the full match. I doubt he will. But I think he'll be in there for at least like 60-ish minutes, just to make sure that we are not just letting Liverpool play out the back, free of pressure. So, that's what I'm going with. And, hopefully that pans out well. Drew, how about you?
I mean, I'd rather not play Odegaard if he wasn't 100%. He'll also want to feature for Norway, obviously, over the break. So, for me, I think from a pure fitness standpoint, Eze is probably came in as close to fully fit as we could have hoped for a new signing, considering he featured in the Community Shield. He played match day 1. So he just has to get up to speed for basically having a week off, and you can do that in a week. I would be comfortable playing him, and because he's such an intelligent player, I don't think our press would suffer that much. I think he could pick things up quite quickly. He also has other people guiding him. He has Rice behind him, who he has a good relationship with already, which is really important. We know how well Zubimendi has already kind of fit into the system, so I guess he can kind of riff off that as well. And the way Gyökeres does press relentlessly, I think when you add those kind of pieces together, I don't think we'll see like a drastic reduction in how we're able to press. I do think there's the concern, though. I get, and I'm not saying you're wrong for having it, but I think we'll be okay. I just don't think we should. We just don't need to risk Odegaard now. I think that's kind of the whole reason why bringing Eze in is making a lot of fans happy, because we don't have to force that narrative now. If he's only 80% fit, start Eze, and if we need to, then you can bring Odegaard off the bench maybe. If he's fit enough to be on the bench, you can bring him on for the last half hour, last 20 minutes, whatever, depending on the match date. If Odegaard plays, I don't even know. I think if Odegaard starts, I don't know if Eze will start, because I feel like Arteta might want to tap into Martinelli being direct, considering that it's going to be Szoboszlai playing at right back again. And Martinelli's pace against that might get Szoboszlai into car trouble early, and Gyökeres can get him in that same kind of trouble. So having those two questions for him to answer specifically might be one of those kind of tactical plus points for us. I can also see why we would play Eze and kind of overload those central spaces, because Liverpool through the spine aren't the same as they have been previously, and having Calafiori overlap against the Szoboszlai, and having Calafiori be another physical presence to contend with for him down our left-hand channel offers, again, that overlap, offers that central overload, which could give Van Dijk and Konate some problems. So, and this is kind of why I like it, there's a lot of tactical solutions we can try to come up with to get a result away from home. And this is what you want an improved squad for. I'm going to lean towards Odegaard not starting. I mean, Arteta said yesterday that he if he does go into training, it would have been today, but he didn't train previously, so just one day's training, I don't know if he'll force them back into the team. So what I think we'll see Eze at 10, I think we'll see Madueke on the right, Martinelli on the left, Gyökeres up top, and then Rice Zubimendi behind it, and then the back four we'll agree on Calafiori, Gabriel, Saliba, Timber, and then Raya in goal. And I think that's more than a good enough team to go and get a result at Anfield. I don't know if we will or not. Me and John got in this gigantic debate on WhatsApp for I don't even know how long previously about concerns and stuff. What I would say is, if we came away with a draw, I'd be fine with it. I think again, getting Anfield and Old Trafford out in the first 3 weeks, getting 4 from 6 points from that, 4 points from 6 from that, it's hard to argue with. I think we're good enough to go and win. Liverpool don't really impress me this season. I know I've said that in the past, both here and elsewhere. I don't even have them winning the league this season. I think attacking wise, they're going to be a tough cookie to negotiate. But I'm not afraid of their midfield. I think their back four is better going forward, but it's not nearly as good defensively at this point. And now with Frimpong out, Szoboszlai playing there, Kirkez, he relies a lot on his recovery pace to get him out of trouble, but he's brash in the tackle. So that could be an interesting combination when you have Madueke running him for 90 minutes or whatever. So, yeah, I think I'm going into looking to it like really positive. I think we'll get a result. So, but I expect that most matches this season, and that's for the first time in a long time I can actually say that I don't ever fear going anywhere at this point, which is important for me personally on a personal level. So
I do fear going to Anfield still.
Hopefully, but I get
hopefully tomorrow changes that. Hopefully tomorrow changes that. But
I get it. We haven't won an Anfield in 13 seasons or whatever.
Yeah.
So again, I understand where the fear comes from. I just don't have that fear.
I would. I'll tell you right now. It really comes down to if we had Odegaard and Saka, I would feel like we can go and get a win. I would actually be confident. I would actually be going. So that's what our debate was on WhatsApp was around that. Once we found out that Saka and Odegaard might not be able to play, it was like conversations like, okay, yeah, Madueke looked good on the right against Leeds at home. This is very different away at Anfield. It's like a whole other ballgame. So if he can come away and look as good as he did against Leeds on the right-hand side against Liverpool, I mean, that is a significant statement that he can make this week. Or tomorrow he can make a big statement about what his position is in the side. And I don't think you'd have thrown Saka, but Saka has been, he had a great goal against Leeds, but he's going to maybe need some time after this injury. I don't know what kind of recovery it's going to look like. This is an opportunity for some of these players to make statements. I'm getting a little off topic. I'm a little concerned about tomorrow. I still am. But I'm weirdly, there's like a weird optimism. I don't know where it's coming from. So it's one of those that I've kind of probably repressed as an Arsenal fan. I've kind of pushed it down every time it's come up. But it's starting to come back up a little bit. Like we can just go and do something here, which would be great.
I mean, I think that's a great point, though, about how a lot of these guys have points to prove.
Yeah.
Right? Madueke, Gyökeres, Eze especially. Yeah. And then Zubimendi maybe just kind of wants to announce himself a little bit more. But definitely those three have an opportunity to say to Arteta, make me the starter here. Right. I'm the best player in this position. Right. So Gyökeres, he's probably looking at Havertz being out for 2 months and thinking to himself, if I score at Anfield, if I score against City, if I score against all these teams that we're up against for the next 2 months, I'm golden. I'm never going to ride the bench. Havertz is going to be replacing me off the bench every game. So and Eze, not only does he want to make that impression as well, but as an Arsenal fan himself, he'll want to have a big win at Anfield, and Madueke kind of same vein as Gyökeres. So I do think that's a really good point. Speaking of Arsenal players wanting to make a statement, would you have Max Dowman on the bench as an option at Anfield?
Yeah, hell yeah. Like, see what they did last week and just do that to them now. Like, 95th minute winner from Dowman, to beat Liverpool at Anfield. I mean, that just the narrative sauce alone is worth it to have him as an option off the bench. I don't know, man. That's like probably not, right? You probably should not, but yeah, hell yeah, do it.
If we needed a goal, I'd bring him on for sure.
or like a penalty win or something. Like, tired defenders against this kid who are afraid of this 15-year-old. Like, it's just someone that they have to deal with. Like, everyone that he's played against have to deal with him, which is crazy.
Yeah. No, I definitely wouldn't bring him on if we were defending a lead.
No.
But, if we're up, if this is the 1% outcome and we're up 3-0 at Anfield in like the 80th minute, right? Definitely bring on Max, have a little bit of fun. If we need a goal or two, I'd bring on Max as well to deal with that. But yeah, I think he'll be on the bench for sure, and then after that, it's just a matter of what the game kind of dictates for us.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Drew, how about you?
I mean, I think he'll be on the bench. Also, I mean, just because if especially if when Saka's not there, Havertz isn't going to be available, and if Odegaard isn't even past fit enough to be on the bench, then you assume Daubmann will be there for sure, regardless of that. So, would I be confident in bringing him on? I don't see why not. I don't ever want to be in a position where we have to start him at any point, at least in the first half of the season. I think that's still asking too much of him. But yeah, if we're up by a goal, or if we need a little bit of a spark, in the last 15 minutes, I think he's obviously a different player than Trossard, but I think Daumann has more of that, those qualities you need to kind of like uplift you, so to speak. I think Trossard is the kind of player who obviously like plays off others, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think against Liverpool, you probably want something a bit different in terms of profile. So yeah, I think he'll at least be on the bench, and then we kind of take it from there.
Who's going to be at left back for them, do you think, Drew? You think it's going to be Kirkes?
I think it'll be Kirkes.
Okay. That versus Daumann could be kind of
because of Kirkes' pace. I mean, they just named Robertson vice captain, but
yeah.
I don't see Slot starting Robertson. I think they moved for Kirkes specifically because they wanted him to be the new first choice left back. His profile fits Slot more. Again, he's good going forward. He's got good pace, but I do think defensively he still kind of struggles, especially in the system.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's why I'm also looking forward to seeing Madueke against him. I think Madueke
I think it's going to be interesting. I think that's going to be an interesting match. Drew, Sham, how do you think Liverpool will line up?
Alisson, obviously in goal. I think what's the name of that backup right back that they have again?
The one from Pong?
Yeah, the one out of their academy or whatever. Bradley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. That depends. You know what? I think they'll start Szoboszlai at right back. Yeah, I think they'll start. I hope they start Bradley, but I think they'll start Szoboszlai at right back, and then Konate, Van Dijk, Kirkes, Gravenberch, Wirtz. Who is McAllister fit? Do you guys know if McAllister's fit?
That's what I was just looking up.
Yeah. If McAllister's fit, he'll start alongside Wirtz.
I don't think so.
Okay.
McAllister is back to full fitness and expected to return to the side after missing the Newcastle game, but maybe he won't start. So like maybe Alisson, Bradley at right back maybe, and then who would you see like Van Dijk and Konate as like a midfield
Van Dijk, Konate, and then Kirkes at left back. I think Gravenberch at the 6. I'm gonna say they start McAllister and Wirtz together as the 8s, and then Salah, Ekitike, and Gakpo.
Yeah,
that's their front three.
I think so too. I think we have some opportunity to exploit Connor Bradley and Kirkes, especially Ize will be able to. And I don't think I'm really looking forward to seeing Van Dijk versus Gyökeres, but I think Gyökeres versus Konate is actually a favorable matchup. So I think
Gyökeres actually will kind of be on Konate more often, just because it kind of angles to the left, and yeah.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, because of that, I wonder if we'll see without Saka on the right hand side, if Van Dijk might kind of switch over every once in a while to get the better defender on Gyökeres when he goes out to that left hand side, which, if that's the plan, might be a good opportunity in game for Arteta to start having, like, assuming as he starts playing, drifting into the right hand side, letting them deal with Gyökeres, and then kind of leaving. I think there'll be space open if that's their plan.
Yeah, if they have to, and they probably will, if they have to commit multiple guys to Gyökeres, I just think that really opens things up for Madueke and Eza.
Yeah.
Either way,
Yeah.
because I like both of them to beat their man, on a pretty regular basis. So,
All right.
before we get out of here, what are you guys' score predictions?
I'll go first. I know John might struggle here.
No, I think I got it.
I'm gonna go 2-1 Arsenal because I do feel really confident going into it. I think if we were to play Liverpool, similar to what I said about Bayern, if we were to play Liverpool 2 months from now, my answer might be very different, even with a fully fit squad, because I think all the new signings might be more adapted to slot in the club. But I think 2-1 Arsenal. I think across the early doors of the season, I think we've improved every performance so far. I think Liverpool are kind of still the same Liverpool we saw during the Community Shield now, and a bit riding their luck. So yeah, I say narrow win for us, and I'll take the 3 points, and hopefully I'm not incorrect. So we'll see.
Okay.
I think that's a good, a 2-1 is it's a throwback there, Drew. I'm going, my brain is kind of telling me like a 2-2 draw, but I want to go 3-2 Arsenal. I think there's going to be some goals in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to go 3-2 Arsenal.
I think it'll be 2-1 Arsenal. If we had Saka and Havertz and Odegaard, I'd say 3-1. But I think Liverpool, like I said, are going to be very open at the back. And their first 2 games of the season against a very depleted Bournemouth and against a very depleted Newcastle, they conceded 2 goals. They went, they lost. They blew 2-goal leads to them. And I don't think. I don't think they have it at the back. And then I think we have the best defense in the league, and we have enough to, for the most part, cope with, Saka and Verts and Ekitike and Gakpo. And honestly, right now, I would bet money they're going to sign Isak before the end of the window. Right now, I don't think they have much to bring off the bench against us, right? It's Chiesa. Yeah, it's Chiesa and Rio. Those are their 2 options really off the bench. So, I think we'll have enough to kind of take advantage of the gaps that they leave in behind and their defensive instability, and I think we'll have enough to, for the most part, hold on to the lead. So, very optimistic from all of us. Love it. So we will see what happens at Anfield, and we'll be back on Monday to talk about whatever does transpire over there. Hopefully a win. So we'll probably put a bow on it here because we're past the hour and a half mark. But thank you guys so much for being here, for listening. Thank you for taking the time to kind of be in this conversation with us. We really do appreciate it. So I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. That's Drew. You can follow him on Twitter at Geechee Kid. That's John. You can follow him on Twitter at 305cast. You can check out the pod at oh my goodness. You can check out the pod. I'm cutting that. You can check out the pod at Not That Gooner on Twitter. And you can check out the pod on Bluesky at notthatgooner.bsky.social. On Instagram at Not That Kind of Gooner. On YouTube, please do subscribe there at Not That Kind of Gooner. And we're also on TikTok at Not That Kind of Gooner. Lots of different places you can come find us. And if you're listening on Spotify, please do give us a 5-star review. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts and that's an option there, I'm always unclear on whether or not that's an option on Apple Podcasts. But please do leave us a 5-star review there as well, if that is possible. It really does help the algorithm put the pod out there in front of more and more people, hopefully more and more Arsenal fans, and expand our audience, which we really appreciate. So we'll be back with you on Monday after Arsenal brutalize Liverpool, and we will chat about what happens there. Until then, take care. Get your mind out of the gunner, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Bye.